Good evening, Shortcuts. This is video 2 for the Shortcuts price list that will go out this Wednesday, the 26th of February at 9 p.m. Sydney time. If you would like to be on the list, drop me an email, shortcutsrecordsaus@gmail.com. Also, I'm running my first record fair. It's on March 16th, Sunday, March 16th, at the Hotel Staying in Manly, starting at 11 o'clock. Please come along. All right. This is a genre list. It is blues, funk, soundtracks, jazz, and some rock and pop as well. All right. That's because the previous list I did was a $40 or less list. This is not quite the case here. I've got some really interesting rarities. And where to start? Well, I decided I could have started with any of the first three. Let me show you what they are. John Lee Hooker's Endless Boogie, Nasty Gal, Betty Davis, or Can't Buy a Thrill, Steely Dan. Please stick around for the Bruce Lee showcase as well, because it is pretty spectacular. But I'm going to start with this. John Lee Hooker's Endless Boogie, which is a double album gatefold. Let's talk about why I love this record. Now, this is, those of you who are Shortcuts Bingo, Pink Label Probe. You know how special I think Pink Label Probe records are. They just universally sound great. So this is early 70s John Lee Hooker. He'd already been a blues legend for literally decades before this period. But up until then, he had been primarily about playing stripped down kind of Delta blues, you know, talking to the devil, bemoaning your woman, and he had his particular style of staying in a singular chord, and it was all almost hypnotic. But this record takes that whole thing and elevates it almost to the point of parody, because it is a really raw blues record, but he is playing with the most outrageously talented studio musicians. So what you've got here, Jesse Ed Davis, who worked with Taj Mahal and Eric Clapton, Carl Radle, who was in Derek and the Dominoes, and most importantly of all, Steve Miller as kind of co-guitarist on just about every one of these tracks. Now, Endless Boogie is somewhat overlooked, I think, in the John Lee Hooker kind of discography. You've got No More Time for Sorrow, you've got The Healer, which of course he won a Grammy for, but this is as good as anything. You're Burning, which is another great John Lee Hooker record. There's so many, but this one is different because it is probably the closest John Lee Hooker ever came to making a rock record. Blues and rock straddle each other on this thing, which makes it quite unique for him. It is still quite immersive and quite trance-like. The tracks, some of them are quite long. The infamously, the final track on the record, which is actually called Endless Boogie, is called Parts, I don't know if I'll actually show you. It says Parts 27 and 28. And that's because legend has it, he would just keep playing. And the band would just have to play. So Parts 27 and 28 of Endless Boogie feature Mark Knapfel, John Turk, Steve Miller, guitar, incredible guitar, Cliff Coulter, Jerry Perez, Mel Brown on guitar, Dave Berger on harmonica. It is just a monster track. House Rent Boogie, the second track, is again just crazy. This was all recorded over the course of like three days, November 10th, November 11th, November 12th. I love how hypnotic and groovy it is. I played the first couple of sides to this at a listening night a few years back, and got a round of applause. It's really, really cool. I suspect there's a lot of the jams that were lost to time that were still pretty awesome, but the ones that were captured on Endless Boogie are well worth your time if you like that kind of stuff, and I do. All right. Nasty gal, Betty Davis. Probably one of the sadder stories. This is a pristine condition Japanese first press. You will not find better. It is absolutely perfect. Now, the story of this record. This was Betty Davis's third album. Came pretty soon after They Think I'm Different, which was probably her magnum opus, the second record. I had it up for on the list a couple of weeks back. Didn't do very well. And this is, I think, an almost angry condemnation of the press around her at the time. You know, dragging Miles Davis down, overly sexual, too confrontational. She wanted it her way, and the system were like, no, it doesn't work that way. And she just regaled against it. And she recorded and self-produced the hardest, funkiest, most biting record that she could at the time. Of course, it was an immediate failure. And, you know, rumor has it that a whole bunch of records were stripped from the shelves. Basically, it was such a commercial non-event that the record companies couldn't wait to get away from it. She was immediately dropped from her label, even though she'd recorded the follow-up already, or had recorded a follow-up. It was just shelved and wasn't released until 2016 when Light in the Attic, who, you know, friends of Shortcuts, released the record. And it's really good. I mean, it is a proto-punk feminist manifesto. Songs like Dedicated to the Press. Dedicated to the Press is one of the most lacerating takedowns of how the press treat women ever recorded. Talking Trash, again, similar type of thing. You and I is her love song that she wrote and co-wrote, actually, with Miles Davis. I love it to bits. This Is It and The Lone Ranger just describe kind of like her manifesto. It is way ahead of its time. She basically became a recluse. It's such a shame. She's awesome. And this record's great. Anyway, mystifying how these things go sometimes. All right, let's talk about Steely Dan's Can't Buy a Thrill. Their debut album, super hard to get on Japanese vinyl. No one lets it go because it sounds so good. This is the VIM repress, which a lot of people think sounds even better than the IPS first press. I've got both. I love them. It's just ridiculously good sounding record. And that, again, is a testament to the recording standards that Fagen and Becker set right from the start. This particular band featured, you know, the likes of Jeff Skunk Baxter, Jim Hodder, had two singers. David Palmer sings in a couple of tunes here. Donald Fagen would later become the primary vocalist, of course, but he only sings about half the songs on this record. It was considered that David Palmer's voice was more commercial. The sessions there are books written about how this record was made, and it was an almost instantaneous success. I remember watching footage of Steely Dan on the Old Grey Whistle test, which was like this late night live music show on the BBC, when they played Reeling in the Years and Do It Again. And they were just hypnotic. I mean, what a band. It was incredible. They had obviously a kind of conventional sound, but with that little bit of perversion that I think makes them great. Dirty Work, another great song. The guitar solo on Ringing in the Years, I watched some footage recently with Jimmy Page describing it as his favorite guitar solo ever, even though it was a one take in the studio. Not even by Walter Becker, it was by Elliot Randall. Of course, because the thing about Steely Dan is they would just have so many musicians. Anyway, pretty spectacular stuff. All right, I've talked about a Bruce Lee kind of extravaganza, and I'm about to show you what I mean. The Way of the Dragon. This is a Japanese first press of The Way of the Dragon. The first movie that Bruce Lee directed himself. Music by Joseph Koo, lyrics by James Wong. You can see the first press, the details on the back. But part of the reason I'm describing this as a showcase is the poster that comes with this record is spectacular. I'm just going to unfold it here first. Look at this. How cool is that? That is the poster that came with the Japanese first press of The Way of the Dragon. And in addition to The Way of the Dragon, I also have this, which is the Japanese first press with Obi of the Lalo Schifrin soundtrack to Enter the Dragon. Now this is a 2LP version with extended cuts, a whole bunch of dialogue and all sorts, but so much more. Are you ready for this? There are the two records. I'm going to show you what else is in this package. For those of you who love this type of stuff, prepare to have your mind blown. Okay, so this is the original inner that came. So that's part of the original packaging. But then in this particular release, this particular version that's been sent to me, a bunch of extras have been added. Next, I have what looks like a ticket. You can see 7,000 yen. I think this might be a ticket to a movie or a premiere or something like that, because in the package is a book. The book has nothing to do with the music, but has everything to do with the movie. And this is a book about Enter the Dragon. Now, at the back, you can see it's got an English language version of the story. But at the start, at the beginning of the book, you've got all the movie credits with scenes from the movie itself, all the way through to a description of the cast and the director. There's the page about Bruce Lee himself, and then this really, really fun kind of centerfold and various other images all the way through. Spectacular, right? And in addition, there's another book that came with this. Now, this book is specifically about Bruce Lee, and it's basically a series of iconic images from Bruce's movies. And I'm just going to show you the centerfold, which I really like. Really cool kind of iconic images of the man, and there he is chopping away at, I think that's the back view of Chuck Norris. Anyway, what a package. Spectacular. For those of you who like that kind of stuff, that is pretty special. All right, let me get back to my list. There's a few records here that many of you will know. You will know Kind of Blue, Miles Davis's masterpiece from 1959. Hard bop legendary record. Turning point for jazz. Cannonball Adderley, Paul Chambers, James Cobb. the little known John Coltrane and Bill Evans and Wynton Kelly. Absolutely incredible. I don't know if this is a first press. I'm going to have to, I don't think so. I think it's a slightly later press. SONP 527. We're going to have to dig it up. But absolutely wonderful copy. There's a record here now that I very rarely see in Japanese presses of. I have one myself and I love it very much. It is this. The Japanese first press on the green Warner label of Tupelo Honey on hard cardboard. So this came after the critically acclaimed Moondance, with Astral Weeks considered, his kind of canonical record. And he recorded a double album. The studio convinced him to split the double album into two. One half is St. Dominic's Preview, which is more kind of politically aware and almost a little bit more of its time in terms of critique. Whereas Tupelo Honey, which was kind of the other half of that recording session, is much more soulful. There's a lot of piano on here. It's a very mellow record, particularly compared to St. Dominic's Preview. It has grown in stature over the years, though, because it's such a heartfelt record, and his voice on this record sounds absolutely spectacular. It's got a little bit more of the jazz feel of Moondance, but more kind of folk jazz. It's just a lovely, 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 lovely album. And even though I think I read back some of the contemporary reviews at the time, and they were, a little bit less critical, I think this is pretty great. And I don't know, Van Morrison ended up moving to Woodstock after releasing this album. Spent some time with Bob Dylan, the band, ended up appearing on the band The Last Waltz, kind of stealing the show. But this kind of pastoral view of this record just makes it really special. I love it a lot. Okay, a few more to go. This is always fun. The Queen Live Killers record from 1979. The Japanese released a version where the double albums were pressed on translucent green and translucent red vinyl to reflect the sleeve. And it sounds spectacular. I know quite a few of you have bought that over the years. I've had amazing feedback. So yeah, I think I love it when I find that. It's not very often, but it's really, really good. Okay, I am going to talk about two Japanese presses, and then I'm going to talk about something that you're going to be surprised about. This is Miles Davis's Birth of the Cool from the early 50s. This is his kind of explosion, his kind of declaration of intent, the original classic recordings. Just a fantastic record and a really interesting press. So this is on the Capitol Records label, but has an alternative sleeve, and it's very, very lovely. As is this, one of my all-time favorite records, Blondie's Parallel Lines, one of the great pop rock late 70s records. Iconic. Every song is wonderful. Heart of Glass, everything about it is amazing. If you don't know Parallel Lines, give it a listen. This Japanese press is fantastic. All right, now I've got something that you will not have seen before. And I think there's some of you out there that might appreciate this. This is the UK special edition release of Raintown by Deacon Blue. So this was a sample record, not for sale, because not only do you get the album itself, you get, which is this, you get an additional 12-inch. And the additional 12-inch is B-sides and other releases and other tracks from the album. So Which Side Are You On? Kings of the Western World, the original piano version of Raintown, Shifting Sands, Ribbons and Bows, and the original demo of Dignity. So there's the band, for those of you who remember this period of pop music. This was Deacon Blues' debut album, recorded in many different studios with Ricky Ross, kind of the lead singer, taking on songwriting duties and, you know, driving something in his mind, a very meticulous version of what he thought this band could be. And it ended up being really a love letter to Raintown, i.e. the city of Glasgow. Not every track is directly about Glasgow. I mean, Dignity is a song about a working man just trying to create value in his life. Chocolate Girl, When Will You Make My Telephone Ring are kind of romantic story songs. The title track, Raintown itself, has become kind of synonymous with Glasgow, and it's kind of almost, from what I can tell reading some of the blogs now, like almost a unofficial anthem of the city. And this period of kind of 80s pop music where bands like this could just immediately dominate the charts, it's never going to happen again. And I think that's what makes this record kind of great. And so it made the list. So there you have it. The mixed genre list for this week. This price list will go out 9 p.m. on Sydney time this Wednesday, the 26th. If you would like to be on the price list, drop me an email, shortcutsrecordsaus@gmail.com. Like, comment, all that kind of stuff. It makes a huge difference. Thank you. And thank you for watching this far. Bye.